Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. My home is AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. You all are coming on from everywhere. I'm coming on a little early today because, I had to get some people who I would not be able to get to talk about this particular topic. I have to have the right configuration. And I said, oh, okay. I got my coffee clutch with me. Of course, I've got Ariel Gold, Fellowship of Reconciliation. She is We're all trying to pass out. Chaparral Wells is with us. uh, it's just incredible voice here in Chicago. We got Senator Nina Turner, former state senator Nina Turner. Of course, we have all grown to love her. She is uh, one of the big, probably the loudest voice that Bernie Sanders has. Loudest, most articulate, fearless voice, and she's a sister, beloved, for whom I have tremendous respect. And we've been talking about this campaign, all of us, since the beginning, because something about the way Kamala Harris was put in didn't feel right. And we said it. People got upset with us. We said, no, it's not that we're not pulling for her. We're trying to see what's pulling against her. Right. And now we see that she had a whole lot. Rania Patrice, by way of Dr. James Ogby, said, we need to know if she is the captain of her campaign or a captive of her campaign. Well, now we're beginning to see just how much of a captive of her campaign she was. I want you to meet me on Blue Sky at santitajackson.bsky.social. You can also find Nina Turner over there. And we're going to find out more about her radio show before she gets out of here. And I am at Santita J on X and the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Everybody tune in here. Like and share, like and share. And the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. Let's get right to it. This is from a book that is about to come out. I have pre-ordered it, and I'm seeing the excerpts, and it's just amazing. Fight: Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House by Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnes. It'll be out on April 1st. No pun intended. April Fool's Day. You cannot make this up. It really goes into the change agents that the country was looking for, the change agents that President Trump, now former President Trump then, and then Vice President Kamala Harris were promising to be. When Kamala Harris came out of first of all, she was put in, she had fewer than 115 days. I think she had 107 days to pull this campaign together. And still, she came within 2 percentage points of Donald Trump of at least winning the popular vote. Greg Palast's investigation, and of course, he is the person who uncovered the theft of the 2000 election and subsequent thefts. He said, no, actually, she not only won the popular vote, if we factor in gerrymandering and voter suppression, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, she also won the Electoral College because she won the vote in critical places. Well, it turns out that she had a lot of back and forth because, as you know, these campaigns so well, Senator Turner, she had to, number one, she was dropped in the middle of Biden's campaign because although he had promised to be a transitional figure, he actually would not let the campaign go. Norman Solomon, Jeff Cohen, Roots Action said, hey, for 2 years, you said you'd be a transitional figure. We have got an incredibly popular figure in former President Trump. We need all that we can muster to come up against him. Okay, he wouldn't move. Well, he also had frighteningly low poll numbers. So there was that. And finally, he had what was sadly a very, very troubling debate in June, which sent the party scrambling. They said, you gotta go, please. No, not please, you're going. We hear a lot of rumors about what happened behind the scenes, but it's very clear that he was not happy to leave and that he was pushed out. He hurriedly signed some letter, not on his letterhead, saying that I want Kamala Harris to be the nominee. It wasn't even on presidential letterhead. You know, for those of us, we don't remember this, but certainly history tells us that when LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, got out of the race, he at least addressed the nation and gave us some space. And what a week that was. 4 days later, Dr. King was killed. I mean, it's just 6 weeks after that, Robert Kennedy, the presumptive nominee, was killed. It was just a heck of a time. But there was some continuity. So, trying to get the campaign started, and I'm going to let you pick it up from here, Senator Turner, it was kind of rocky. But she came out the gate swinging. She said price gouging. She tested through the roof on that. And her campaign, which was his campaign actually, told her to pull back. Mind you, she was beginning to push ahead of Trump on price gouging. That's what people want to hear. Then she gets a call from Joe Biden before her debate. And he said she thought she was going to get a pep talk. Nina, it was not a pep talk. He said, look, before you think you really run this thing, let me tell you who runs this thing. No daylight, kid. She was like, wait a minute, what? Yeah, she was not allowed to carve out her own path. Now, you talk to me, Nina Turner. I think I've just tried to encapsulate this article that's made us all go, huh? You got it. What do you make of that?
I mean, you set the stage for people who may just be catching up with what's going on in this book that's going to drop on April the 1st. I mean, people always know if you're in the meeting before the meeting before the meeting, and books like this come out often, as we know, that tells a more holistic version of the story. And those levels, when people play at those levels, it's no surprise that this book is revealing what really happened. It was incredibly hard, not only just to have less than or a little more, about 100 days or less to even run a race of this magnitude, but running as the vice president, it's awfully hard, incredibly hard to separate yourself from what your administration has accomplished or not accomplished. And because people were and still are going through such incredible economic pain and despair, she had a decision to make. So in that way, SJ, I guess, President Biden's call is not necessarily that strange, because it is patently clear that he put himself ahead even before this book revealed it. We can check some other receipts. It was clear that he was putting himself ahead of what was best for the country, because as you laid out, number one, he said he was going to be a transitional president, transitioning to another generation. He decided at some point he did not want to transition. So that was lie number one. Let's be honest. And it was a lie. He didn't do it. He decided to run. He knew before anybody else that he was diminishing a bit. That comes with age. So there's no shade. People age differently, and it is part of the circle of life. So no shade on that. But he knew before anybody else. The First Lady knew. I believe Speaker Pelosi knew. All them folks, Congressman Clyburn, and certainly the Vice President knew. There's a whole bunch of folks in that circle who knew. But yet they put party over people, starting with him. So what this book is revealing, SJ, is of no surprise. So if you're going to play this game, if you're going to be recruited in this way, if you're going to let people use you in this way, then you got to play the game the way they tell you to play the game. So I am in no way shocked that the president said no daylight, kid, and especially since the neoliberals forced him out. I'm old enough to remember that when progressives were shouting from the rooftop, Bidenomics is not working, we were told we were caping for Trump. When we said people are hurting, because I went to East Palestine in Ohio, where Norfolk poisoned those people, and they voted in 2020 overwhelmingly for, now again, President Donald J. Trump. I didn't look at their 2024 numbers. It probably was the same. This is a working class, a poor and working class community in the great state of Ohio, majority white, and the majority of them voted for President Donald J. Trump both times. When I went there after Norfolk poisoned them, the train derailed. I'm using this as an example. Those folks didn't say they wanted less government, contrary to what the GOP kept pushing. They wanted more government. They wanted to know why their government would allow Norfolk to do this. Is somebody going to answer for this? Is somebody going to come and rescue us? And President Biden was the active president at the time. It took him too long to get there, and it took the transportation secretary over 10 days to get there, while he's on national TV talking about that's not the only derailment we have to deal with, instead of feeling people's pain. So that is a long way, and I'm using them as an example. That is a long way to say that people were in pain by the time this election of 2024, the campaign started, and the Biden administration wanted to deny it. The people caping for that administration wanted to deny it. If only we had a better message. No, you don't need a better message. You need to listen. So again, the vice president decided this is a hill she wanted to try to surmount and try to climb. And I don't even blame her for that. What other opportunities, where the field is totally clear. Hello, somebody, but you ain't tell me to say that. I mean, you didn't tell me what to say at all. I know we're not dealing with that, but the field was totally clear. Democrats got to admit that. The pathway was clear, because had President Joseph R. Biden said, I'm going to stick to my word and be a transitional president, then all kinds of people would have ran in that primary, and we could have had a robust debate. And if we had had a real primary, even if he decided, you know what, I'm going to run, and those of you who want to try to take me on, but they locked out everybody. They even locked out people like Dr. Cornel West, Dr. Jill Stein. It don't matter how you feel about these folks. If we live in a representative democracy, Democrats, just like Republicans, have a right to have a primary. So, SJ, a longer way for me to say that this was rigged from the beginning. So, of course, if it's rotten from the beginning, it's going to be rotten in the end. And so I am not surprised that she got that call, no daylight.
Yeah, I mean, but what does that call say to you? I mean, because the thing is that to me, she was not a captain. Ariel, I'm going to get to you in a hot second, and you too, Chaparral. She was captive because she was running with people. It turns out her guy, Mr. Clegg, came into one of the prep meetings, and he said, no, 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 wait a minute. She needs to be able to forge her own path. I'm just paraphrasing. That was the last time he was able to come to the meeting. So there's that.
But she made the decision, SJ. I mean, she had agency to say, I'm going to take this assignment or not. She decided to take the assignment. And once she decided to take the assignment, she had to play by the rules as they set out. It's wrong.
Yeah.
It's wrong.
Okay.
But hey, that's what she signed up for.
So, I mean, so what what does this say to you about President Biden? Because, he has the nice guy image and all of that. And hey, I'm just keeping it 100.
No, he's selfish. He's the same man. See this thing, I want my other sisters to get in here. They may totally disagree with me, and that's fine. He hasn't changed since he was in Congress. This is the same man who said, I don't want my children to go to school with Black people because I don't want them in the jungle. This is the same man who's on record giving speeches in the Congress about working with Republicans to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. It's the same man. And so they tried to remake him once he became the vice president for President Barack Obama. Then he gets a makeover. But at his core, he is the reason why people couldn't discharge student loans through bankruptcy. He lorded over the crime bill. He was the chairman, am I correct, for the Anita Hill hearings.
He is the one who buried her. She refused to accept his apology.
We delude ourselves. Actually, that's all I'm saying. People have to say, if you're deciding between the lesser of the two evils, then let's be honest about that decision. But when you allow somebody to totally make themselves over, and then you want to hold one candidate more accountable for racism and anti-Blackness and bigotry than another, see, that's when Sister Turner got a problem. He the same man. So it was selfish of him not run in the first place. It was selfish of his campaign to crush. Democrats sued Dr. Cornel West and Dr. Jill Stein and Congressman Dean Phillips, who was the only actively elected official who had the gall to say, I am running. They crushed that man too.
So and they pushed Robert Kennedy out.
And
you don't have to like
Robert
him.
Kennedy,
and he went to her after she became the nominee and said, hey, I want to work with. They wouldn't even return his call. You don't have to like him, Ariel and Chaparral and Dr. Latrice. You don't have to like him, but what you need to do, you need to respect.
That's it.
He got as many votes, at least according to the machines. I don't trust them. He got as many votes as Jill Stein did. I think she could have used those votes.
She's a force. You don't, even for me as a candidate, you go get the person that was number 2, 3, 4, 5. What you don't want to do, you want to neutralize them, even if you can't pull them to your side. That's politics 101. You don't get so big that you ignore anybody. It's the same thing that she said to the Teamsters. I see you when I win. I'm paraphrasing.
Wait a minute, girl, wait a minute.
Right.
And you can't, and we're going to win anyway. You need to get on board.
That's
I said, what
okay.
is she doing? I'm
You
about
don't do that. You not in politics. You don't do that.
And before I pivot to everybody else, why don't you do that in politics? As you have run for office, you've won. You're one of the biggest figures in American politics right now.
Yeah, I mean, you don't. You gotta try. It's already a battle as it is, and you gotta try to bring as many people in as you can. And you ain't getting married. This is a speed date. This is a speed date. Can we just date for a little while? I just need to neutralize you. Either I got to get you to my side, or I got to neutralize you so that I have less battles to fight along the way. That's politics 101. Robert F. Kennedy was not the enemy to Democrats. That was wrong. They should have went and got Dean. All them people, they should have tried to at least court them. At least.
And put them on the road with you.
Right. But no, they preferred to put Liz Cheney on the road with them than they did a progressive. I mean, anyway, yeah, I want to hear from my other sisters.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, she's got a show too. When's your show? Because I want everybody to tune into that. When's your show?
Yes, every day. I mean, yeah, Dr. Cornell West and myself, we are on Tavis Smiley's network, KBLA Talk 1580, Monday through Friday from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's something that you do not want to miss. And I want to lift up brother Tavis Smiley for having a very strong Black progressive radio station in LA. So join us every day.
How about that part? Before I bring on John Nichols, who is running through here, Ariel, because Ariel is about to jump out of her skin. She's been saying this for so long. Ariel, go on, girl. But get off mute. Get off mute.
I just have to agree with everything that Nina said. And, you know, I remember thinking this when Biden was running for the first time. I remember thinking that this didn't have to do with wanting to better our country. He just felt that he was due a presidency. He served his time in Congress and he'd been in politics for this long. And so he thought he was due a presidency, and the party agreed with him, and they were like, here you go. And then he just thought he was due a second presidency, and it didn't have anything to do with the people. It had to do with his own personal ego and legacy and entitlement, just entitlement as a white man, and none of his history, none of the horrific things he had done in the past mattered to him. He just felt he was due a presidency. And then that's really how he ran the presidency too. If we look at the war that's back on as of yesterday in Gaza today, he didn't listen to the people on that. He just did what he thought his little ego wanted. His little ego remembered his delightful breakfast and whatever with Golda Meir, and he just wanted to carry that on because that was just his personal bullshit. And that's how we're in this position today. And I also want to agree that I think Kamala didn't have a backbone. She just didn't have a spine, but she did have the responsibility. If she wasn't going to step aside, she had the responsibility to be her own woman and do what needed to be done. And she didn't. And that's how we are in this apocalyptic time here. That's how we haven't been able to get this war in Gaza stopped. We always knew it was temporary when Trump gave that ceasefire. I've been saying since this ceasefire came into effect that the reason Trump did so had nothing to do with hostages, the people of Gaza. He just didn't want to continue Biden's war. So now that it's stopped for a while and now that it can be his war, green light, go ahead. And this is the situation we're in. And that is Biden's fault and it is Harris's fault.
No question. Oh, John Nichols.
SJ, wait.
Yes.
Oh my God, Sister Ariel got me jumping. That was the other point I wanted to make about this war. When there is no daylight between Donald J. Trump and Joseph R. Biden on Gaza, we have a problem. And as neo-fascist as Donald J. Trump is, this war started and was cultivated under the Biden-Harris administration. I don't know how the American people can sit back and see over 40,000 people massacred, millions living in famine, being pushed from their land, and our tax dollars. They want to talk about law and order. So you know what? Trump is continuing, to Sister Ariel. He is continuing because there is no daylight between those two administrations on what is happening to those people. So what happens over there happens over here. It is the same spirit that does not give a damn whether we have universal health care in this country, that allows babies in America to go to bed hungry at night, for parents to have to work 6 jobs to make ends meet. It's the same spirit. So you cannot continue to ask the American people. That is why the poll numbers show what they show. 29% for Democrats, 36% for Republicans. The American people are saying, we don't want none of this with y'all, because nobody is really standing up. But we are not going to escape karma on what is happening in Gaza. And for the law and order crowd, then follow the law. We are breaking our own laws, and we are breaking international law. We got the Foreign Assistance Act 620I. I double dog dare people to go look it up. When it is brought to the attention of a United States president that a nation that we are giving weapons to are not allowing humanitarian aid to get into those civilians, we are supposed to stop it. The overwhelming majority of the American people on this moment, not what happened on October the 7th, was horrific. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And this ain't a but, and what is happening to the Palestinian people on our watch, in our name, with our dollars. And Biden-Harris administration allowed it, and that Congress, they allowed it all to happen. And Sister Ariel is right. That is the reason why we got Trump 2.0 right now. The economy and this war.
No daylight. John, I know you only have a couple minutes, but go for it.
Well, tell me what you want to talk about.
Okay. Well, I mean, when we look at this, Biden said he was going to be a transitional figure. He's not. And we see that he backed Kamala up against a wall. And I must say this, Ariel and Senator Turner, Dr. Latrice and Chappelle Wells, wait a minute, John. She was up against the president of the United States, who controls everything. And quite frankly, that no daylight kid is menacing to me.
Well,
that's not nice. No, I'm just saying, if my father had been the nominee and he came awfully close to being that, if the president called him and said that would frighten the blankety blank out of me. Now I don't. It comes down to me. I have to determine what I'm going to do with that. Okay, but that to me, the whole thing. See, we're beginning to see what was happening in that campaign, John.
Look, let's begin with the basic concept on all of this, and that is that Biden's presidency suffered because he didn't listen more to Kamala Harris. Not a leftist, right? She was not it's not a figure like, let's say, an Elizabeth Warren or a Bernie Sanders or an AOC or an Ilhan Omar or any number of other people who we could talk about. But she had perspective that mattered. And she talked to people in many cases that also mattered. And she was not listened to. And that harmed the Biden administration. I promise you, there is simply no question of that. So you begin with that baseline, right? That counsel would have been useful. And I think it would have been particularly useful on one of the issues we're just talking about, Gaza. Look, I'm not going to try and paint her as, someone that I would agree with on a lot of Middle East issues. But I will tell you that if you recall from a year ago, her speech in Selma and her comments there, where she clearly distanced herself from the administration on what was going on, and then kind of scrambled back,
For
right?
6 weeks, she said 6 weeks we need to have a ceasefire. Remember?
Right. But yeah, which by the way, I'd take another 6 weeks today.
Mm-mm.
And so bottom line though is that there were issues where hearing her would have helped. I'm not trying to say it would have made it a great administration, but it would have been better for Biden to do that. Amplifying her, putting her up in a more prominent place would have helped not just the Biden administration, but the country, right? Because if indeed Biden had to stand down, she would have been better positioned for what she ended up doing, a 107-day campaign. Can you imagine doing that to anybody? Saying, yeah, I'm running for re-election. You're on the sidelines. You're going to be the vice presidential candidate. And then 107 days out, you say, oh, I guess I'm not going to do this. You take it all. You take all the responsibility. And so harm to the administration, harm to the country, harm to our politics there. And I've interviewed the vice president a number of times in many different steps. And the fact of the matter is that one of the saddest parts about her circumstance, in my view, was that she was actually doing a tremendous amount in some areas. Her work in labor with labor unions was exponentially more than what a lot of the rest of the administration was doing. People don't know that, but she was the one going out and actually, at those labor conventions, in the union halls, at the training centers, and she built up a lot of important relationships there. She did a lot of the heavy lifting on the relationship with labor. Yet people always said, well, Biden's the best labor president since Roosevelt, or the best labor president in history. In reality, Kamala Harris was that. She was a far more heavy lifter than people gave her credit for. But because she was not given that, that status as a vice president with standing, with a real ability to, be heard in all sorts of ways across the country, because the administration did kind of push her back or hold her back, in my view.
No, John, no. His people came after her 2 years before the election to delegitimize her. All of the talk, it turns out,
not
was being leaked
Yeah.
about her being illegitimate, that was coming from his people.
Not missing any of this. And
no, I'm
sharing
you're not missing it. I just want to share it with the audience because we're political people.
Yeah.
I just don't want them to miss any of that.
But what I will say, and hearing what you're saying, what I will say is that made their labor appeal less effective, right? That made their appeal to all sorts of communities where Harris had connections and where she could have done so much more to make this administration work. They lost that. And I guess that's the emphasis I want to put here. In addition to everything else that's being said, all of it valid, is that this was dumb politics. Because the problem of the Biden administration was that they launched good initiatives and then they didn't fight hard enough for them. And they eventually dialed them down. And even when they got a lesser initiative, as they got on infrastructure, as they got on, all sorts of different plans, when they got something lesser that still had some decent stuff in it, they didn't go out and communicate about it. So here you had someone who could have done more of the fight to get the whole of what they were talking about, and also go out and sell it once it had been done. And they did not do that. So this is political malpractice at the most fundamental level. And the last thing I would say on this, the one thing I would really emphasize is the deep, deep danger that we get right back into this trap again. And this is a real danger with the Democratic Party at this point. If they take the wrong lessons from what happened during their last presidency and apply them, right? If they learn the wrong lessons from that, then you run the very real risk of ending up in a situation once more where instead of utilizing the vice presidency as a tool to build things out, to do more, to have something that actually works, they'll screw it up again. And I cannot emphasize the great danger of that, because the fact of the matter is the Democrats did not learn from the failures of the Clinton presidency. They did not learn from the political setbacks that they experienced during the Obama presidency. If they don't learn from the Biden presidency what they got wrong, then we remain on this track. We remain on this cycle that the opposition party is effectively dysfunctional. And, look at where we're at. As I think both Ariel and Nina said, Senator Turner said, we've ended up in a horrible place as a country, right? A really, really awful place. And, years ago, quite a long time ago, I was going to write a book on the Republicans, right? And on Trump and why, on the Republican Party and why things got so bad, why the party moved from, a center right party over to a far right party. And as I was working on the book, what I realized was the problem wasn't the Republican Party, which I happen to disagree with on fundamental issues. The problem was the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party's constant pattern of pushing its progressives to the sidelines, of even pushing its mainstream Democrats who might be able to add something but aren't part of, this inner circle to the sidelines, invariably weakens the party. And it creates a situation where the party's only appeal is that they're not as bad as the Republicans. And so we've had 2 generations now of the Democratic Party. Well, actually, I'd take it back to the 1940s, even the Truman era, but of the party literally saying, well, we're not as bad as the Republicans. But when you do that, the Republicans keep moving right and the Democrats keep moving right, because they keep saying, oh, there's this big space where we can say we're not as bad as the Republicans. The end result of that is that the whole politics of the country moves away from where the American people are at to a place where the Democrats offer them very little that excites them or very little that actually eases their pain. And so the Democratic Party in 1944 was offered the possibility of an economic bill of rights. Roosevelt's last speeches talking about an economic bill of rights that guaranteed healthcare, housing, education, good pay at a job, the ability to form a union, and for everybody, not just some groups, right? And Henry Wallace, his vice president, was coming in talking about racial justice, talking about a foreign policy that didn't squander all our resources on unnecessary wars around the world. And we had that possibility. And when Roosevelt died and Wallace was marginalized, that the party began a pattern that has continued to this day. And if you want to understand a fundamental truth of why our politics is such a mess today, you have to understand that the Democratic Party has again and again and again done things like what we're talking about now. And you can blame it on Biden. You can blame it on Biden's inner circle. What I would tell you is that the complaints that you're hearing here are not Biden. Biden was the embodiment of the party, right?
Yes.
And they are extensions from a Democratic Party error that is now the better part of 80 years going. And because of that error, because of the way that they have operated, we've ended up in a situation where we don't have universal health care. We don't have universal access to education, in fact, free education. We have a housing crisis. We have all sorts of other challenges in this country. We've got a foreign policy now that is disastrous, but it was quite disastrous in many ways under Biden. And we end up with Donald Trump and Elon Musk. We are literally running things as an oligarchy. So I guess that's all I would say is that the Democrats, this conversation that we're having now invites us to have a broader conversation about the Democratic Party. And that broader conversation about the Democratic Party ought to lead us to recognize that there is a Democratic elite, a Democratic establishment that is always at work 24/7 to keep the party what it is, right? And those who want to change the party, once they recognize that, have to be working just as hard to make it something else.
And American politics, something else, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Because the fact is, this is about democracy, not just the Democrats. It's about not just the Republicans. I'm not implying that's what you're saying. Don't want anyone to infer that, because you're one of my leading lights in politics and political thinking. That having been said, the through line with all of this is the corporatization of our politics.
Yes.
And we have got to deal with that. But I'm glad that you were able to make some time for us today, because we're going to continue this conversation, because to me, what's happening, you're right, it's not about Biden, and yet it is.
Well, you begin with Biden because we personally.
Well, it's current, and
right.
because I know how he was remade.
But
I know how yeah, I know how he was remade. This is someone who went on the floor of the U.S. Senate within a couple of weeks of the almost killing of Rodney King on TV, who called for a police officer's Bill of Rights. He has been so offensive to me as a woman, as a black person in America. He's been offensive for 50 years. And I can't back up off of that because I've seen what he does. I'm no boy, and he aligns himself with the right wing of the Democratic Party. He's someone who got our only black senator pushed out of office, who was fighting for busing, Ed Brooke, who was
Yep.
a Lincoln Republican. He's the same guy. And I know the beat down that everybody on this panel took when we said, hey, we tried to amplify that about him and say, hey, we got to do something else. We got to push him on his politics, because his politics are far to the right of ours, and his interests are to the right of ours, because his state is a corporate state. Everybody gets a Delaware corporation.
So let me associate myself with everything you just said, all the important things that you just said. And as I go, and I hate to leave because I love everybody on this panel, and I wish so much that I could stay.
I do too.
Lucky to hear a little bit of what folks were saying as we were coming in, and it was so wise. I do think conversations like this matter immensely. And sometimes we think we're talking, just about the events of the day, or we're sort of, commenting or whatever that is. I think that a realization of the errors that the Democratic Party has made over a very, very long time are the beginning point of a different politics. And that different politics can beat Donald Trump, right? And it can, take on Elon Musk. It can do all the things you need to do. But you saw last week what happens if you don't get to that different politics. If you don't get to that different politics, you're going to have Chuck Schumer pulling his punch when he should have been throwing it. And you're going to have a media system that wants to move on to the next issue of the moment. And we're not going to have the fundamental discussions that we need to have. So I celebrate this show. I celebrate the people, dear friends who are here right now. I wish I could stay longer. I got to go do the next thing. But I'm sending love and solidarity, and also an exclamation mark that tells you this is a really important, vital discussion. It is the kind of discussion that at its best inspired the Reverend Jesse Jackson to run for president in 1984 and 1988. It is the kind of conversation that inspired Bernie Sanders to run for president in 2016 and 2020. These conversations matter because Jesse Jackson didn't get that nomination, and neither did Bernie Sanders. But they got so close. There is simply no reason that if we get it right, if we think this through with the passion and the energy that we should, we can take that next step. And that next step in transforming the Democratic Party, I would argue, will transform American politics. So
Amen.
I leave you with that.
Sending you so much love, John Nichols. John Nichols of The Nation magazine, our dear friend, met him on the campaign trail in 1983. That's right. My parents adopted him because he was a kid, just like the rest of their kids. They said, "Look at this little boy. He's out here with us. We got to help him. We got to make sure his parents know that he's all right." I love you, John Nichols.
I love you more. Be strong. Take care, and love to Nina and Ariel, to everybody. I just keep strong and keep having these great conversations.
We're gonna try. We love you so much, John Nichols. And you know what? I hadn't expected to have Nina this long, but I'm glad that you're still here, because let me tell you, part of the reason we need to have this conversation, and Dr. Latrice, I didn't mean to take you off, is because, see, when you see what happened to Kamala, this is what happened to Jesse Jackson. This is what happened to Bernie Sanders. The party came against them. They had the energy, the enthusiasm, and quite frankly, they had the votes. These people were pushed out the way. And I'm saying for corporatists. So let's just keep this 100. This is why this conversation is so necessary. So when we're having this conversation and we get trolled a lot, you know this, Chaparral, unlock your microphone. Rania, you unlock yours. Everybody just unlock. Because this is when I approached you when we were at the convention in 2016, Nina, because I met you through the Sanders campaign. And I said, when he was closing out his campaign on television, it broke my heart to see you crying. And I said, when I see her, when we get to this convention, I'm going to go give her a hug and I'm going to let her know you got to keep fighting. You remember when I saw you? I said, do not stop because you didn't know what we had been going through. That's part of the reason that Bernie Sanders fought so hard.
Yeah.
Because he knew how they tried to bury us and Paul Wellstone. It doesn't stop.
No, it doesn't.
No one's asking what happened to Paul. Paul came out of our campaign. He managed it. He managed our Minnesota campaign in 1988.
Mm.
And then he was fighting almost alone for us not to invade Iraq. And then he dies mysteriously in a crash. Oh, yeah, I'm putting that out there because I'm sick of it. And Dr. King said that we are a house on fire. He said, no, we fought the right fights. But am I going to integrate my people into a building that's going to burn everybody up? Where's the morality here?
That part.
That part. Well, I got the American representatives at the United Nations today excusing what? It's not 40,000 Palestinians who've been killed. The Lancet study said it starts with 186,000. It'll be up to 500,000. Their blood, it's on our hands.
Yeah, it is.
And all these starving people in America. Are you kidding me? Oh, no, no, no. And you ought to get hot about this, everybody. And I loved Paul Wellstone, Robert Williams. He was a decent man. All these decent people. And we have all this indecency. Rania, we ought to get tired of it.
You think?
Yeah, should Kamala have done things differently? Yeah, absolutely. Because she was also told, don't get in this because you ain't ready for this because this is a nasty, nasty game. That having been said, in the meantime, I think people need to know what Joe Biden was doing while people are sitting up here blaming Cornel West and Jill Stein and Robert Kennedy for the loss today, which is not true. Nina, you know they didn't do that. The Democrats lost.
They lost.
And that's something, Ronnie, you stood in the middle of the party pushing. Ariel standing in the party pushing. We're like in the wilderness. We were at that meeting in Washington a little more than a month ago. It's like, who are you sending? You plan to send these people into the streets? Are these the people who you're going to get the 900,000 people who did not vote in New York in 2024? Do you think they're going to get them back? Really? Rania, I promise you, Dr. Latrice and Chappelle, I'm going to come to you, but oh boy, come on, talk to me. And everybody just jump in. I'm sitting back.
Oh, I just came off of a meeting where I brought up this this Politico article, and y'all may have already talked about it. The headline read this morning that centrist Democrats are having a moment.
That part.
And I couldn't finish reading the story because I was gonna start throwing things. And we even talked about this yesterday.
Yes, we
the
did.
Bailey, and I heard a little bit of what John was saying too. Like there is history here of Democrats not actually talking about what went wrong. And it's incredible to me. And Santita, you and I have talked about, I'm sorry, I keep just putting my hands in my face because it's just so unbelievable. But she was running around the country with Liz Cheney, and they want to talk to us about the progressives or what as though somehow it was some kind of, she was upholding or he was upholding some kind of a progressive agenda, and that was the problem. Y'all, she was talking about immigrants like Donald Trump talk about immigrants. If you put their words side by side, you wouldn't know who said it. That's disgusting to me. That has nothing to do with progressive policies or progressive change. That is all about centrist ideology. And they want to talk about, they're doing a victory lap right now. Let me tell you, Chuck Schumer is not doing a victory lap right now. Canceling your book tour is not a victory lap. Sorry to be petty, but I'm gonna.
Is that there's that reporting?
Thank you, Santita. I love you so much. But at what point? I mean, and you said it. At what point? At what point do people actually sit back and go, okay, is gone terribly off the rails? People are suffering and dying, and I am sorry, I'm in my emotions today because I'm Palestinian and my people are again being massacred live on television for everybody to see, and nobody gives a damn. And the West Bank
No,
is
we
still
do.
being decimated.
Well, no, we
You
do.
know, the powers
Yeah.
that be
Yeah.
don't care, continue to send weapons, continue to send excuses. Meanwhile, just like you said, kids in this country are starving. People can't afford to go to the doctor. People are rationing their medicine. But we can afford to kill babies in
No, they're
Gaza and
killing.
in the
They're
West
killing
Bank.
a
And
generation. They're
yeah,
wiping out mothers and children. Are you
yes.
serious? The Bible tells you in the book of Ezekiel that as is the mother, so goes the child. As my mother said to me, it's a blood tie. You are your mama. And they have made a conscious decision to kill the mothers and to kill the children. Now, this is what you call, my pastor, may he rest in peace. This is evil. But we are complicit in evil. But we're complicit in evil when we starve people here.
Yep.
You have people who they're forcing the elderly and the physically disabled to go to the Social Security office. Oh, excuse me, half of them about to be closed. So what? My mama's 80. Now she's spry and she drives a little teeny weeny 2-seat car enough. She said a seat for me and the seat for my purse because I carried all y'all. I ain't doing that no more. And I'm glad that that my mama can't around, my father can't. We're blessed to have some help, but we are in charge of that. That having been said, are you serious? We're gonna treat our elderly this way? And then you're gonna cut their checks? And then all you can do is have your wife wear red on the day that we're voting. Because that's what Mrs. Biden wore. She was wearing red. And people say, well, isn't that curious that she's wearing red? Okay. No daylight kid. Really? Ronnie, you should be in your feelings. I'm in my
Yeah.
feelings. I'm a black woman. I don't have to be Palestinian. I've been a Palestinian all my life. And we're in solidarity. Ariel's in solidarity with you. We're in solidarity with anyone who's under the boot of oppression. Everybody's a Palestinian. Everybody's black. Everybody's a woman. Everybody's LGBTQ plus. Everybody's all of that. Keep on living. You will be that. I'll be sick of this. It's not right. Stay right there, Rania. Chaparral and LaShawn, you all been listening. Chaparral, please don't curse. I've already had 2 of those today.
Listen, Santita, I just want to just bring it home for everyone. They absolutely had no intention of allowing a black woman to be president. This was all just smoke and mirrors, if you ask me. The Democrats never wanted her, and the country never wanted her. The fact that Hillary Clinton lost when we knew that she was very qualified for the position, I knew then that there was no way in hell they were going to let a black woman be the first woman president over a white woman president. But the trick was, we don't want no woman president. I think that this whole Democratic Party is, not only is it racist, it's also sexist, and it's misogynistic. So when we have these issues that we're seeing coming up when it comes to Kamala and her election, she was really in a corner. And we could see that by the little she talked and she spoke. Because even though black women supported her 10 toes down, we were there for her and everything like that. But I was like, okay, I'm going to support the sister because she a sister, and I hope that she get it. But I had no intentions of them thinking that they were going to put the money, the campaign behind her. Because when you have this type of election with only 100 and some days to run it, you need everybody at the win. I was like, where Barack? Where Michelle? Where Bill Clinton? You couldn't even find them. So the party sat back, and you want to come 2 weeks before the election and try to curry votes. It was a setup from the beginning. And so I knew and I understood their intention was for her to lose. Their intention, none of what the Democrats have been doing lately was a winning strategy. And what we're seeing translated now is still a losing strategy. When we see that the Democrats have sided with the Republicans on this budget, I was tweeting and calling the switchboard. The switchboard was busy. So I know Americans were calling, telling these people, don't vote for this budget. But guess what? They turned the phones off. And so that tells me as a citizen that you don't give a damn about what I said. And I started emailing at that point, Santita, when I couldn't get through the switchboard. And I told every last one of them, I want to see y'all Democrats turn over the damn tables. Throw some chairs, because that's what they do in France and in Europe. They start throwing, they don't like the budget. They start throwing chairs, turning over tables. Show me that you're mad. Because I'm mad as hell, because I'm over here in front of the TV about to throw a chair at the TV. Because the way that y'all sitting up here just capitulating to whatever they want to do. And at this point, what we're seeing, Santita, is that there is no fight. So it's not like they keep on saying we have a two-party system. No, we don't. We got one party. Evil and evil. Because what we're seeing is that the poor and the middle class are the ones who are being disenfranchised in this country, and the rich are the ones who are getting richer. So everybody has aligned themselves with the money. And so I'm not going to be in the dark about what has happened. It was never their intention of her becoming president. She was just a seat filler for the moment.
And black women felt that. Black women felt that way. So those of us who were not delusional. I'm with all due respect, my sisters. Y'all, come on. I said they're not gonna let the black woman have it before the white woman does. And if they didn't want Hillary Clinton, no one has been more qualified to be president in our history than Hillary Clinton. Nobody. No one. And they would not let her in the door. As a woman, you should have been insulted. Dr. Latrice, I'm coming to you, but I know Rania's got to go. I know Ariel's got to go. So I want them to say what they're going to say before somebody has a brain, a stroke. Rania? And we are praying, if we're watching this, as I've been watching, I've been taking a look at the Security Council meeting, and to hear America justify this and say this is about Hamas, I said, no, this is about you. You want to kill all these people. That's what you're doing. This is you. You're not in my name, you'll do this. Mahmoud Khalil, you're not doing this in my name. No. They disappeared him down in Louisiana. Are you for real? Away from his wife who's about to give birth to their child? You got a couple of minutes. Oh, ugh. Rania.
Yeah.
And my prayers go with you and your family.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And it's hard not to just be angry every moment of every day, and not to also remember that Joe Biden put us here too.
Yes.
And as disgusting as Donald Trump is, and I will always be the first one to raise my hand and say it and name it, but Joe Biden made excuses too, and sent billions of dollars and circumvented Congress to send billions more dollars and more weapons. And yeah, this is next level, what we're seeing, with Doge and Musk and all of these other things. But what's happening right now in this emergency UN Security Council meeting and all of this, I mean, we are here because Joe Biden kept saying, this is the red line, and Benjamin Netanyahu would run all the way past it, wave on his way, and Joe Biden would do nothing, except for send him more weapons and send more money. Again, while people are suffering right here, and we don't have money. We don't have money for reparations. We don't have money for climate change. We don't have money for health care. We don't have money to feed kids. We don't have money to take care of veterans. We don't have money to address homelessness. We don't have money for any of that. But we always have money to feed the military-industrial complex and to bomb people on the other side of the world. So I love you. And my dear, dear sister Nina, I love you always. And Ariel, it's so good to see you and happy to be with LaShawn always. And Chaparral, thank you so much for having me and just letting me always come in whatever state I'm in.
You're part of the
You know?
family. You're part of the family.
Thank
Get out
you.
of here. And I
Thank
don't mean
you.
get out of here. I mean just
No, I
please.
know. I love you.
I love you. Get out of here. No, and it's okay. You should be in your feelings.
Thank you.
When you see Rashida Tlaib, guess what? Her grandmama's in the West Bank. I mean, what are you all
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah.
And how are you going to say, elections have consequences when you talk about somebody's mama, somebody's daddy, somebody's cousins, grandparents, aunts, uncles? Are you for real? What? Ariel Gold?
Yeah, we're with you, Rania. And
You've got family over there too, Ariel. I mean, please.
yeah, family and friends. And there's a lot of dead children today. And I think there's going to be a lot of dead children tomorrow and the next day. And yeah, these are dark times, and we got to stick together.
And but there is light, and we have to decide to be it. Nina, we're going to continue on with this conversation, but I know some of you are going to have to go. But I'm sending you so much love. But Nina, I wanted you to say what is on. You stayed much longer than I thought you would, but I'm so glad that you are here, my sister, because I called you on the fly.
When my sister calls, I definitely try to accommodate. No, I see the validity in everything that everyone has had to say today. I agree with Brother Nichols that these types of conversations are necessary for change and hearing to happen. And I definitely salute you, as I'm sure everyone that comes on your show, for having the courage to allow these kinds of deep conversations to happen, because so many people are afraid to do that. That's the only way that we move forward. One of my favorite James Baldwin quotes: "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." So thank you, SJ, for allowing us the space to be able to face these challenges. So hopefully we will get the change that we need. This is about humanity writ large. And so, as the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, what affects one directly affects us all indirectly. So no one should have a cavalier attitude about mass murder, regardless. We just can't. We lose all of our humanity. And so shout out to the pro-peace movement, and for the courage of these young people on these college campuses putting their bodies on the line. Even in the Biden administration, they sent police for these young people's heads at those encampments. So let us not forget this. I guess my biggest concern about the Democratic Party, I agree with what Sister Chaparral said about the racism and the bigotry, and there is only one party. It really is. It is these parties answer to the corporatist wings, period. Their babies, their children go to the same schools, they navigate the same parties, they go to dinner to one another, they kiki it up at for example, President Carter's passing, his funeral. They were up there kikiing it up. President Obama was laughing right along with President Trump. Not to say you can't be decent towards somebody, but that was deep. That was more than just saying hello. That was, y'all got the masses fighting each other while they breathe a certain type of rare air.
That's why I try to say, stop it, y'all.
Yeah, why we
this
fighting?
personal thing?
Stop
demonizing Trump. People stop. People on the left stop demonizing the right. Right stop demonizing people on the left. We're dealing with the same beast, Nina.
That's it. They pick up the phone and call each other, and guess what? Their kids ain't gonna suffer, because they got enough money to shield them. But I'm worried about the big mamas and the big papas and their kids and their kids' kids in the hoods all over this country where people are misunderstood. That's rural, urban, and suburban. I'm worried about those people, which is why I do challenge the Democratic Party, and I wear it with a badge of honor when I'm told that Clyburn said I ain't the right kind of Democrat. Fine. Because if I got to be the type of Democrat that kowtows to the Democratic Party over the people in my district, over the people in this country and the people of this world who are suffering, then you know what, baby? I ain't the right kind of Democrat.
No, you're not that kind.
I am
the right kind.
What Sister Cheryl said about turning, listen, I hail from the revolutionary side of the Black liberation theology, Christianity that turns over the tables for poor people in this country. And I don't care if I'm never invited to any of their parties. their Christmas parties. You cannot have the same leadership that got us in this position. How is it that Donald J. Trump, President 2.0, could win the popular vote, the Electoral College, be back in this office right now, and you got the same Democratic leadership both in the House and in the Senate still in control? Riddle me that. And voters, but particularly Black folks, we got to stop falling in love with these politicians. There used to be a time, SJ, and I know you know this, there used to be a time where Black people voted their interests. I am Black first.
Not Democrat first.
That's it. And I ain't got to worship at the feet of Democratic Party. And I don't care if it's a Black person at the head of it either. If you lording over genocide and you're Black, I got a problem. If you lording over hungry babies, I got a problem. If it only takes $20 billion to solve homelessness in the United States of America and we sending billions overseas, I have a problem with you because I don't want to be oppressed by a Black hand or a white hand. I don't want to be oppressed by anybody. And so we got to stand up. Now, all things being equal, yes. Are we behind the mark in terms of Black representation and being elected because of a system in this country that labeled us as chattel? Absolutely. We must never forget that. And we got to hold all elected officials accountable, especially Black ones. That's my thing. And so people fall in love so much, you start protecting these people knowing they're not doing the right thing. So not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And I definitely count it an honor to be with my sisters, all of my sisters and our brother today. And SJ, especially you, it takes a lot of heart to have these kinds of conversations. It really does. This is the only way that we are going to get change. But I'm going to keep fighting the good fight.
Well, no, you and Cornell West are having this conversation every day on Tavis Radio Station, which I hope to get on real soon.
Every day.
At what time and where can we find you?
KLB, KB, or KBLA 1580 Talk is centered in LA. The Eastern Standard Time is 3 to 4. And yes, we are having these conversations every single day. And we want people to know that all is not lost. If every person puts a little extra on their ordinary, things can be changed. We know it from history. Abolition is one of the strongest signs and symbols, the civil rights movement. There's so many other movements, but all the liberation of other marginalized people come because of Black liberation. People get their courage. They take their strength from how Black people move in this country, because it doesn't get more liberating than to fight for your very bodily, spiritual, mental liberation. And that's Black folks. We are the moral consciousness. We are not perfect, but we are the moral consciousness. And every other movement is taken from our movement to shore them up as they move for justice for these various groups. So people got to understand this. And this ain't anti anything. It is very much a pro-Black, pro-humanitarian. And everybody needs to understand that when Black people are attacked, it's only a matter of time before they come in for other folks. When Black people push for liberation and to make this country live up to its creed, everybody benefits from it. So it ain't lost on me that the centering of Black liberation is everybody else's liberation. I am a hell-raising humanitarian, and I just can't go along to get along, SJ. Even to this very day, I'm being asked to go along to get along. I think all them leaders need to go, every single one of them, the House leadership and the Senate leadership. This ain't just about Chuck Schumer. It's about all of them. All of them. They didn't increase the minimum wage when they had. Anyway, I know that Dr. Latrice got to get in here. All love. And until next time.
I love you.
Love you.
Senator Nina Turner, you know I love it. Then you just stay right here, everybody. We got about 20 more minutes we're going to have right here because I wanted to hear from you, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show special extended edition. We have had a conversation, not Dr. LaShawn Latrice. I want to hear from you. Shapiro Wells, I want to hear more from you. As we have been looking at what happened in the Kamala Harris campaign. And the reason I felt that it was important is because this book is about to come out. And many of us said, well, you know, she gave it a great shot. Yes, she did. But there was much more to it. There was much more to it. It turns out that she was told by President Biden that she didn't have the space She didn't have the space to differentiate herself from him, from genocide in Gaza. She didn't have the space to talk about price gouging. Even as inflation, we couldn't afford eggs a year ago, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, community psychologist, Chappelle Wells. We couldn't afford eggs a year ago. And so when she came up with price gouging as a campaign theme, which was winning the internal data from the polling, and they do that every day in these campaigns, sometimes throughout the day. It was a winning strategy. She was told to stop it. But what's more, and this is coming from this book, Fight Inside the Wildest Battle for the White House by Jonathan Allen and Amy Parnes, is going to come out on April 1st. No pun intended, but it will be April Fool's Day. Let me just read a little bit of this to you. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris both understood the importance of being seen as the biggest change agents, because that's what this campaign was about in 2008 and 2012, 16, 20, and 24, because Americans know that they're getting a raw deal, right? So they continued in this article and they said, she could risk looking hypocritical by making clean breaks with Biden on policies she had supported as his vice president, rejecting parts of their record to forge her own agenda. She could identify new issues to run on that avoided the pitfalls of turning her back on the Biden era, or she could rely on voters to see her gender, her genes, and her lived experience, a middle-class upbringing, schools outside the Ivy League, although she's a Howardite just like me, and a career as a prosecutor as symbols of change. Biden and his loyalists, by the way, who ran her campaign, took the first option off the table. He would say publicly that Harris should do whatever she must do to win. It turns out that it was a different story, Dr. LaShawn Latrice. Privately, including in conversations with her, he repeated an admonition, or was it a threat? Let there be no daylight between us. No daylight was the phrase he'd used as VP candidate in 2008. Almost everywhere she went, the article goes, Harris walked among former Biden aides who sought to defend his presidency. Her campaign was run by a former White House deputy chief of staff, all loyalists to Biden, everybody. The day before her first interview, a joint appearance with vice presidential nominee Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, didn't you notice that she was in a chair that made her look smaller, shorter than him? And Tim Walz, you remember that? Come on, open up the mic. You remember it. It looked awful. So after that, they said, okay, we're not going to do that again. She must be in a chair that says at this height and yada, 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 yada. And so they kept having meetings. Veteran Democratic communications strategist Stephanie Cutter, who was a Biden loyalist, launched into a proposed preamble, a list of all the items that made Harris proud to work with Biden. This is before their first interview. And Sean Clegg, a longtime Harris loyalist and advisor, said, quote, wait. Let's not do this. Let's not go down memory lane. That was the last time he was invited to media prep. Didn't hear from him anymore. So when she sat down with Waltz and CNN's Dana Bash the last week of August, the segment produced a little bit of news. Harris said she would name a Republican to serve in her cabinet. Not the best signal to send to Democratic voters. And sitting next to Waltz in a chair that seemed to place her below him and heaping praise on Biden's record. It was not a good look for her. Okay? For the rest of the campaign, her team required that she be provided a chair that elevated her. Correct, because she's petite. Not petite, but she certainly was not as big as Tim Walz. Well, the day of the debate, Biden called to give Harris an unusual, as he put it, kind of pep talk. And another reminder about the loyalty he demanded of her. No longer able to defend his own record, he expected Harris to protect his legacy. Not win the election, everybody, to protect him. Whether she won or lost the election, he thought she would only harm him by publicly distancing herself from him, especially during a debate that would be watched by millions of Americans. To the extent that she wanted to forge her own path, Biden had no interest in giving her room to do so. He needed just 3 words to convey how much all of that mattered to him. He said, and I quote, "No daylight, kid," close quote. Now, is that advice or is that a threat? That's my question to you. That's what it sounds like to me, a threat. Because remember, she's running with his team. These are the people he had in place who were going to be his team. Many of them had left their jobs to help him to run for re-election. A re-election, quite frankly, that he said that he was not going to run for. So, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, thank you for being with us for so long. Now, I want to know what you think about this before Chappelle jumps back in. Hey, you have all the time you need.
Well, I am loving the conversation. I agree with the panelists that spoke before me. A lot of things that people acted as if they forgot about weighed heavy on how the election turned out. And you and Chappelle and many others are witnesses that we sat here week after week after week discussing the campaign and how it was an unfair advantage from the very beginning. But even into the days that they announced that Kamala would be the nominee, there did not seem to be an exact push or support, a mode of support behind trying to actually elect her. And so what I saw was just spinning wheels and smoke and mirrors, as Chappelle said. And as I talked to people and people wanted to get behind and rally behind this woman, this Black woman, many people did notice that there was not a lot of dialogue, not a lot of communication, not a lot of addressing of issues that were specifically important to the Black and Brown communities, those people who were disproportionately impacted, the disenfranchised communities. We never really heard anything about that. We never addressed people who have been impacted by incarceration. We never talked about the lack of police accountability. We never talked about law enforcement and how it impacts our communities. All of the subjects that people wanted to hear, they were silenced. And to me, that was a direct implication on where the campaign was going. And what I saw, Santita, I saw inner fighting. I saw something happening behind closed doors that they didn't want necessarily to leak out, but some of us could not help but to notice it. And a lot of it had nothing to do with us. And they had to have somebody they propped up in front of people. But at the same time, they counted out everyone else. They just slid everyone to the side and acted as if their opinions, their votes, their choices, none of that mattered. And then when I thought about the Democratic National Convention and how it just turned into a giant party, it didn't seem like it was designed to educate. It didn't seem like it was designed to inform. It just seemed completely opposite, and it seemed closed off. And it just looked like the parties merged into one, and the power took over. The power structures took over. And the reason why we don't see a lot of Democrats fighting for what's right or what we want them to fight for is because they too are benefiting from the power structures that have connected them into the game. And so I'm not saying every person in the Democratic Party is like that, but I'm saying the quietness, the silence that we hear. Silence in the world means acceptance. And so when you don't see people fighting, it's because they've bowed down, they've kissed the ring, they've done whatever they've had to do to keep themselves counted in. And they just have not thought about us and in the communities like us that are disenfranchised and what we fight for. So I just say that we have to continue to hold that light. I just had this conversation yesterday. I was at a political event with someone, and I told them, just like I said on Sunday, how could we know God and feel like this is over or this is the end? I just do not feel like I have given over all of my power to a man or a system. And so I'm going to continue to fight. But one thing that Nina said that I really, really, really agreed with is that the reason why those percentages were so low is because people felt like, I don't want to be a part of this system at all. So what they did was not showed up. And I mean, it's evident now, and people feel like, I told you this is what was going to happen. And, it's like you're hearing that over and over again. Mm-hmm. So if we
you're
don't
seeing it in the numbers, right? I mean,
yes,
Democrats are polling lower in favorability than they have in more than 100 years and ever. Republicans are polling higher than Democrats. Democrats have a 29% favorability rating Republicans 36%. So I mean, so all the people who've been weighing in on Jill Stein, on Robert Kennedy, on Cornel West, they're not your problem. They are really part of your solution.
That's
All
right.
you had to do was bring them in. All you had to do was bring them in, LaShawn. Dr. Latrice, all they had to do was bring them in and talk with them.
That's
Because,
right.
see, every candidate represents the people who are voting for them or who support them. And to the extent that you shut them out, you're shutting out their people and they turn away from you. That was what Reverend did not want to do as he was bringing, Reverend Jackson, as he was bringing us to the table. Even though they were rejecting him, he took the hits. Because number one, we were barely in the kitchen. We had not made it to the table to be on the menu, okay? Yeah. So he said, no, I'm gonna take these hits because if I don't take them, we're gonna be even further away.
That's right.
So we took the hits, but it didn't mean that we were gonna compromise on the people's business. This is what they're doing. And I've heard more Black folks say, as long as I'm Black, I'll be a Democrat. I'm like, wait, what? No. No. And guess what? You can't say that to these kids, Dr. Latrice. These kids are like, I'm done with all of it. And if you see it, they're not voting. And they're certainly not voting for this, Dr. Latrice. Now, you, as a psychologist, as a community psychologist, I need you to talk to me now professionally. Because these people are not, when you feel like no one is paying attention to the people who you send to represent you, what does that do to you?
Creates an avenue of hopelessness. What people who I have been talking to and people who even talking to the young people who can vote, by the way, they feel like rights have been grabbed from underneath them. They feel like many of their college lives are at stake, college careers, college academic world. There's so many questions looming around. What's going to happen with the medical? What's going to happen with the financial aid? What's going to happen with this? I just think that whoever thought of this whole process did not think it through, because to create a world where people don't know if they're going to be able to afford a carton of eggs, or if they can even encompass the 40% markup in groceries. I mean, it's really a bad situation across the board. How many people are losing their jobs? I mean, they went from a secure method of employment to nothing.
With
benefits. Yes, with benefits. Everything.
All that's gone. What does that do to you to have this secure job with your benefits? So you're able to go into a nice neighborhood, rent an apartment or home, and or buy a home, and to have it pulled out from underneath you. What does that do?
It puts people in a utter panic. It is super. I won't even just say traumatizing. It's just super debilitating to just not know where your next paycheck is coming from when you thought a week ago you were secure, and then it's changed overnight. And people were walking around under the impression that this can't happen. It's not going to happen. It's not legal. It's not this. And I said, time after time, anything that we've seen happen that we knew was supposed to go through certain protocols, when somebody wanted to override it, what they do? Create an executive order, and they just bypassed it. It just happened like nothing. And then we look up now, and here we are a couple of months later, and people still don't know where their stability lies, because come back to work, don't come. Come back to work, go to your office building. So many different things. We're seeing an uptick in the need for people to go to therapy. We're seeing the uptick in people with suicide, mental health issues are on the rise. And there's no way in the world that we cannot acknowledge that all of this is like a spiraling I just see a ball just collecting more and more things, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And I don't know how we're going to understand that if we don't unify, if this doesn't become something that pushes us together, we are just not going to make it. And so my thing is to keep the faith, keep the hope going, keep myself connected where I can have these intentional conversations, and I continue to project a ray of hope in whatever conversations that I'm engaging in, and just be sensitive to what people are going through at this time, because it's impacting all of us.
If it's hitting your neighbor, it's hitting you. I mean, Chaparral Wells, I mean, what say you? I mean, because, as we go through, we see what she was going through during the campaign, and you're right. You're right. I can't say that she doesn't have any responsibility, but I think it's important for us to understand the inner workings of the campaign, Chaparral, because everyone said, this is just a nice guy. He's an amiable guy, and he's all of those things. But he also is a hard-nosed politician who ultimately didn't. I don't think he wanted her to win, Chaparral.
I agree. I mean, I agree, Santita. The thing is that Biden was, let's be honest, Biden was shoved down our throats.
And you mean in 2020?
Yes, in 2020.
Wait a minute, like they couldn't do when he ran in 1988, LaShawn. He was never a successful candidate. Like they couldn't do in 2008, LaShawn, Dr. Latrice. He was not a good candidate. Reverend beat him to death in 1988. And then Barack beat him to death in 2008. Yeah, it is. It's true. No, he actually couldn't even finish running in 1988 because of plagiarism charges, which were true. Mm-hmm. Neil Kinnock, who was a politician over in the UK, it turns out he was lifting his speeches almost word for word. Continue, Chaparral.
Yeah, so like I was saying, Santita, so when we came up to 2024 election, I had already made up my mind. I was not voting for Biden. Mm-hmm. And the reason is that he made certain promises in order for us to get him over the threshold, for Black people to get him over the threshold, because we're the one who got him in office. Yeah, let's be real about that. And so he made certain promises to Black people. He said, I'm going to support George Floyd, Justice and Policing Act. I'm going to reauthorize the Civil Rights Act. And one other thing, what was the other thing?
I'm going to put a Black woman on the Supreme Court.
I'm going to put a Black woman on the Supreme Court. That's the only thing that he delivered on, was Ketanji Brown Jackson. And so,
and wait a minute.
Hold
on, Chaparral. That was not a favor.
Right.
That
should have been done under Barack, because you got Elena Kagan, who is really a Republican, and we sitting up here celebrating her. No, Barack dropped the ball on that. We should have had a Black Supreme Court justice. So I said, unless he does these things, I am not voting for. I don't care if y'all send Jesus down here to tell me to vote for him. He ain't getting this vote.
Well, now, if Jesus said, now hold on. If Jesus said, you got to follow the
But
Savior.
I mean, I was just so adamant, Santita, about not supporting him because he reneged on his promises to Black people. He reneged on them.
Do you remember that meeting? Do you remember that meeting that was leaked?
Yeah.
Through The Intercept, where you had all of these Black leaders and he absolutely insulted everybody. Do you remember that?
Yes.
He said, you're not coming through on these issues. This is just before he was inaugurated. He sat back there. He said, look, I already did for you what I said I was going to do. You wanted a Black woman on the ticket. That was one of the pieces.
Yes.
I put her on there. Now I've done everything. You don't need to ask me anything else. And remember, because I put it on my other show, I said he would not have done this to another community.
He wouldn't have. He wouldn't have. And we wanted him to, end the war in Gaza. We wanted him to do a lot of things that were important to us. And they didn't protect, the Democrats did not protect didn't protect us at all. That's why we're seeing the results of all of the unprotecting that the Democratic Party did. We're reaping the benefits right now. Trump is reaping the benefits of all of the lackadaisical things. They were so concerned. Democrats were so concerned with trying to go after Trump instead of listening to the people. And they did not make any effort whatsoever in order to try to make these changes that are going to be long lasting. He had power just like Barack had power. People say, oh, well, he was. Why y'all want to be friends with the Republicans? Roll through just like Trump right now. He bulldozing. He ain't listening to nobody. I'm sitting over here cracking up. Not that it's funny, because the pain is real that people are experiencing, but it's the unmitigated gall that this man has that is killing me. And I was like, oh my God, every day I'm turning around like, what is he gonna do next? What else can he do?
Wait a minute.
And and then he trolling, he petty, he gonna put between 45 and 46. For 46, he replaced Biden's picture with an automatic pen, a photo of the automatic auto signature pen, and then posted it on Truth Social. See, I do follow Trump on Truth Social because I want to know what he talk about.
You know what? I'm gonna join. I do
because I get the alerts and he tell me what's going on, and I promise you. So the presidential picture wall is 45, and then a photocopy of Biden auto pen signature, and then 47 picture. Now that is just hilarious, but this is where we're at. And then you have the Democrats who are sitting up here saying, "Well, it's nothing we can do. We have no power." Well, why are you there?
And you need to have the information. So I will go on there. I will.
I'm saying, why are you there, Democrats, if you are not going to fight this man tooth and nail?
Oh my gosh. Okay.
You have to fight. You have to at least appear that you're fighting. You cannot appear that you are either laying in the bed with them or you bending over. You can't do both. You got to make a decision. You got to make a choice. And what we're seeing right now is that they're not fighting for us. I don't know who they fighting for, but they surely ain't fighting for us. And so that's why you see the numbers. That's how Democrats' numbers are lower than that of Republicans, because the Republicans are pissed too, but they say at least they putting up a fight. They taking it to the Democrats. And until the Democrats begin to understand that the populist part, the Progressive Party is really where the country is. Because, baby, when they start saying, oh, I miss my Medicaid, when the people in Kentucky, Medicaid get cut off and they can't go to the doctor, and Billy Bob and all of them can't pay for milk with their food stamps, they link card, they get link card too.
Well, wait a minute. Don't forget Jamal.
Exactly.
Because wait a minute, because unlock your mic, Dr. Latrice, because yes.
But they always perpetuate that it's just black people who getting government assistance. I want you to know that Billy Bob is over there waiting on his link to come on the first two.
I'm saying the black men who voted for him. That's
what Yes.
Oh, let me tell you, Santita. Why did our friend who cussed me out last month, remember I told you? He gonna say he is sorry that he voted for Trump.
What? Huh?
A revelation, Mr. Ganga. He gonna say he is sorry that he voted for Trump. I said, no, I don't want your apologies now.
No,
because you're the reason that we in this.
Because you're about to make Bernadette choke. Bernadette, please don't choke.
You're the reason why we in this. I said, all y'all black men who sat up here and was saying hi. I said, did y'all get y'all contracts from Trump yet? Because all of y'all have not gotten a dime. He not only told you he was gonna give you a contract, and he was gonna support y'all and all this stuff, and now he not only did he not give you the contract, but now he didn't took your 9-to-5 job away from you. And I'm
Worse.
trying my best not to laugh because I know the pain is real. When you can't afford to pay your rent, your car note, and all that stuff. But the
Oh,
reality is that he's doing exactly what he told you what he was gonna do. Trump never lied to these people. He told them, I'm cutting this, and
Yes,
he's
he
doing
did.
it
but wait a minute. He just didn't think he was going. They didn't think he was going to do it to them.
to them.
Them.
To them.
That's right.
Oh, wait a
Exactly.
minute. But wait a minute. It's not just white people. Now hold on, because and that's why understanding. I can't wait for this book to come out because you had black people who said, "Oh, Kamala would have done things differently." Really, if she didn't have the power to control her own campaign.
Hello.
No. I mean, really, he said no daylight. So if she had to walk through the campaign with these people, you do know, as powerful a force as he is in government. Wait a minute. This is a guy who's been at the top of the governmental heap for 50 years, Dr. Latrice.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think that she didn't have to go into the White House with them too.
Yep.
Oh no. I mean, so I'm just saying, hold it. Let us not be delusional about
That's right.
any of this. That's what you need to know what was happening behind the scenes, because there was dissonance. There was a disconnect. There was no harmony here. You are testing through the roof on price gouging because people are saying, yeah, I'm paying too much for the food. And the data has shown that the corporations are raising prices simply because they want to, not because they need to. They're just making money hand over fist. So when she is told by her own campaign, first by her brother-in-law, who is general counsel for Uber, you got to let that go. You're frightening the funders. Huh? And then you've got her people who won't even let her people in the prep meetings. No. I think it's important that we all know this, everybody. Now, mind you, her mentor told her, don't even step into this space. Hold on to your seat in the Senate because because there's some lessons for you in the Senate. There's some relationships that you can build. Your time can come. But if you master the Senate, that's a big deal. If you can if you can win re-election for this seat, that's a big deal, Dr. Latrice.
Yes, it
This is the
is.
most populous state in the nation, the most diverse state in the nation, and she became the U.S. Senator. First Black Asian woman to do that. That's a big thing. I do not fault her for having ambition. I do not fault her for listening to people who were telling her, oh, girl, you got this. What I do have to say, you made a mistake was you got to dance with the one who brung you.
Yeah.
And the person who brought you to the party said, hey, I don't think you should stay. Or you know what? You need to go to that other room. Don't come in here. And look at what we've got. I mean, and I want us to look at Biden because Biden did not treat her right. And more than that, he deserved the country. Because it's very clear that he was on Trump's side and not our side. That's the thing that's got me a little warm.
Yeah.
Because while people were saying that those of us, Chappelle, unlike your Mike, those of us who were saying this during the campaign, they were telling us that we're going to cost her the election. I'm like, no, we're not costing her the election. This stuff is happening inside.
Real
He
life.
cost her the election. Or should I say, in large measure, he did. Anybody have anything else to say?
I mean, I agree 150%.
Oh,
You could see this a mile away. You could see this coming a mile away. And like you said, everyone has joined forces together. There is no way in the world this was set for her to win.
wait
It
a minute.
just
While
was.
everybody is calling Trump these names, while everybody's talking about how much they hate each other, that is not true. I keep trying to tell you all that is not how this works. these folks publicly have their spats and they go back in the room unless someone's very, very mature and just awful. And you get along. I told you about my experience after Dad ran in 1988, and he almost became the nominee. After George W. Bush ran, and my father campaigned all the way to the end, so much so that he was hoarse, which has never happened to him in the course of his public life. Even Peter Jennings commented on it, or was it Tom Brokaw, one of the big anchors, the night before the election or the night of the election. They said, in all of our years of your public life, we've never heard you go hoarse. And my father just got on through the interview. And I remember after that, George H.W. Bush won. George H.W. Bush reached out to my father and said, hey, Jesse, great campaign. But now that all this is behind us, I want us to meet because there's a lot of, maybe there's some places where there's some spaces where we can work together in this campaign. I mean, moving forward, because the country needs us all to come together. Now, it was a more civil time. There's no question about that. But make no mistake, he had been Reagan's vice president. So we did have real areas of disagreement, but not hostility. And he went a step further, Dr. Latrice and Chaparral Wells. He said, now I want you to come, but I want you to bring your children. When you and I have lunch, I want your children to have lunch with my children. Because they should know each other. Jesse, they will outlast us. And maybe they should know each other, and maybe they can do some work together down the line. On the best day, that's how this works, everybody. Okay? So when you see someone who's hostile and who blocks people from, that's petty. And nobody respects that. Okay? Nobody. And a lot of that's going on now, and it's been going on for some time. And that's why I pull back on calling people out of their names and all of that. Because I've told you, Dr. Latrice, first of all, I don't want to be guilty of that. I don't want to put that energy into this space. I don't want to do that, and I'm not going to. That having been said, something else needs to happen here. See, this is where I think it's important for us to know what Kamala was up against. And more than that, what she was up against, but what was happening to her from within the campaign. Because she was not running with her team. She was running with Biden's team, who had expected to be serving him and who resented having to serve her. And here we are. Not to mention that, did you really think they were going to put a black woman before a white woman?
Right.
I mean, and I'm not, I have no resentment toward white women because I think white women have been sold a bill of goods too. Number one, I don't want to have anything against anyone because spiritually it's unhealthy. Okay. But white women have been sold a bill of goods. They wouldn't even let Hillary in. No one was more qualified to be president than Hillary Clinton. You know, I know Robert Williams, Bush Sr. called candidate Jesse Jackson the hustler from Chicago. These people do all kinds of things. They do. And Obama didn't want Jesse Jackson to come to the election. I mean, to the convention in 2008, and told him so. His people did. He just decided to come on the last day. So how about that? But when he didn't have a platform in Chicago, Reverend gave it to him. And by the way, Reverend never said that he would cut off a part of his anatomy. He said what y'all ended up doing. He said if he continues to talk down to black people, y'all are going to do that. And that is what you did. And that's part of the reason Kamala lost. Part of the reason, because he came in talking down to black folks, black men, and he never came back to apologize, which would have helped her tremendously. He didn't do that. If he had just said, you know what, my bad. I didn't mean to offend anyone. But I see some issues that we have, and y'all, please, you know what? It would have helped her. It did not. So she had to jump over that too, and black men already had a problem with him. because of her record as a prosecutor out in California.
Right.
So, I mean, if I remembered, Robert, every negative or horrible thing that people said about Reverend Honey, I would not be speaking to anybody. But one of the things that one of the person who everybody's rained on and been nasty to is Reverend. And Reverend Jackson, I was reading not too long ago an article about him. And they said one thing I will say about Jesse Jackson is that he does not know how to hold a grudge. Let it go. Because what he ended up doing was he didn't hold a grudge. And if you hold a grudge, he said that has nothing to do with me and my heart and my spirit. You got to keep a clean heart so you can serve thee. How about that part? Because that's the ultimate part. That's the ultimate point. Give me a clean heart so I can serve thee. That's what I'm talking about, y'all. So what are we talking about here? So I mean, what do you make, Chapearl? I mean, what's the way forward? Because they're saying that Kamala wants to run for governor, or that she's polling very well and maybe running for governor of California. And there's some people who want to run who are saying, well, we've kind of been told that if she wants to jump in, other Democrats really kind of need to back up. Ladies. Chapearl, you better turn on this mic.
I think that she would probably have a good chance in running in California. I think going back to being vice president or something like that is not in the works for her. Even being president, I don't even know who the Democrats could put forth in the next cycle for president.
Why not?
Because no one is emerging with any new or fresh ideas. The platform party, the what they just the people that they put in put on the platform and govern, it's the same old, same old. So they have been running a losing message for 3 cycles right now, or more. Probably since Obama, they didn't have any fire or any excitement on the ground. And so what I'm seeing is like, how can you bring forth leadership if you have the same ideas? And anybody who's bringing anything new are being told to shut up, sit down, shut up. You're not. All the progressive people are being blamed for Kamala losing, and it was never a progressive campaign. She didn't say anything progressive. So I'm like, how the hell that y'all blame her for being too progressive when y'all were too far right for the majority of the country? And so there was no division in what the messaging was. And so all of the messaging that the Democrats have been putting forth, and they struggle in this messaging because essentially the platforms are the same as the Republicans. This is what they believe. What Donald Trump and the MAGA party are putting forth to America is almost essentially what Democrats also believe in, which is why they have a hard time counteracting a different message. And so when I see that Kamala, I think that she has to carve out her own space, and that maybe she'll have that advantage of doing that in a in 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 California as opposed to a nationwide. I think her message will resonate more because people already know her. They know her record. They know what she's done and what she hasn't done, and by California being a very diverse type of country, I think that she would resonate more because she does have appeal where she can cross the line. She can code switch. She can go with black people. She can go with rich elite, and she can go with white folks. So she has that ability to code switch and make her audience. But I think that way that failed in the presidential is that she wasn't allowed to do so.
Well,
because
okay, I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying she wasn't allowed to be her authentic self. I think.
Well, you know what? I mean, her winning self.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I'm not asking you to be your authentic self because, quite frankly, you almost have another self right? Um, the thing is, it's a winning message, and not just the policies. You can't block the Palestinians from the stage at the Democratic
Mm,
Convention.
right.
You can't do that. Yeah, I mean, wait a minute. And a Palestinian who's on the inner circle of the DNC, someone you trust, someone who's proved herself to be trustworthy, and you won't let her on the stage. I mean, are you serious right now? Not, I mean, you're not talking about the migrant crisis in Chicago, in New York, in California, in Texas. You're not talking about that. You're not speaking to price gouging. And price gouging was the way to put it. She was
Hmm.
correct. Because these corporations, they're just raising prices, and they were able to do it in a naked way during COVID, and they're just making money. They are not raising prices to pay workers more. They're not doing any of that. Not because it costs more to get the product to market. They're not doing that. They're doing it so they can make money. They have done nothing. No, there was nothing that the Democrats that were the, what Trump did was present. He presented as a populist, and in the 2024 campaign, we got Hollywood.
Hmm.
I was like, who are you all talking to? And Howard University and Divine Nine. I'm a Howardite. I'm a Divine Nine from Howard. I get it. But that is not, and you went to FAMU, Dr. Latrice. You know that does not resonate if you don't position it in a particular way with most Black people. Because you got to position it as an aspiration and as, we're all in this together, not look at what I've done,
Exactly.
right? So, I mean, I don't know what to say. I think that what we've got is I'm really glad, ladies, that this book is coming out and that we're beginning to see what we've been hearing about. Teray has had some wonderful reporting on his Substack, but hearing that this man said to her in a way that, quite frankly, sounded menacing. No
Mm,
daylight kid. She thought she was going to get a call. You can do it. Go on and take it to him. No, no, no. He said coldly, no daylight kid. Kid.
mm, mm.
What does that say to you? No daylight, comma, kid. It
Sounds like
sounds
he
like
had no respect.
for her at all. Oh my gosh. No respect for her. I mean, if he
Mm,
didn't have respect for her then, I know he did not have any respect for her throughout the presidency.
that's right.
Shapiro, you have anything to say? We have about 6 or 7 more minutes left here, and then whew, whew.
Well, Santita, I think we have said it all, but I think that the majority of the country knows that this was never their intention for Kamala to win. They didn't support her. It didn't even visibly look like she had the support of party of top tier party officials. It was basically she was out there. I think mainly received her support from the celebrities and everything like that. They wanted to see her win. Definitely, received support from Black women.
Oh
We
yeah, oh
did
yeah.
but it wasn't about just us. I think that white women failed her. They didn't vote for their own reproductive system. They voted and aligned themselves with their husbands. And I think that the Palestinian issue in Gaza was just the nail in the coffin when it came to this election in 2024. And when you have so many people against you, and you can't really be out there the way that you would want to be out there, it's not a winning strategy. But I like to see what's going to happen going forth. What is going to happen not only with Kamala, but with the whole party in general, because they still have a losing message. If we can see that Donald Trump right now is dismantling all of the systems, and the streets are pretty silent. When you see that Congress, Hakeem has been trying to get his voice and his message out there, but you have, the Republicans and the corporatocracy owning the media, and you got to find a new way to connect with the people to get your voices out there heard. What I'm seeing right now is that we out here in the middle of the ocean by ourselves,
Yeah,
and that's
that's
how
right.
most Americans feel. And we are what is 300 million people on a raft, not a boat, on a raft. All of us,
Oh,
and we slowly sinking. And the way that they have curried the court system and put all the justices that they have been putting these appellate court judges in office for 20 years now. They finna reap the benefits because they're gonna strike everything that we try to stop them, because they've been strategizing for 20 years. For 20 years, Republicans have been strategizing,
oh,
if not more.
longer than that.
Yeah.
I mean, and the thing is, we had I had former HUD secretary on the show. Goodness gracious, former head of my sorority, bless her heart, from Cleveland, former congresswoman, and I can't believe her name is escaping at the moment. And she said, Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line, and that is true. And the thing is, these Republicans, they don't like Trump. And guess what? They don't care because they want him to do a job. That is it. They don't care about all this other stuff. They really do. They don't care. They're like, people are like, well, do you like him or not? That you're asking them the wrong question. They don't care about that. They don't have to like you. They don't. And but they said, you know what? He's got a winning message, and what we'll do is then we will surround him so he will do what we need him to do. And, I mean, and that to me is very, very important. And Robert, I hope to see you at Push for preacher messaging training, because the place where we gather is still church.
Yeah.
And this is where we need to be. And we need to be in our sorority meetings, our club meetings, on our blocks, when we're having little get-togethers. We need to be doing all of that.
Yeah.
And I'm saying across racial lines, y'all, everybody, all lines. Because guess what? Many people thought that that the corruption was with the people. The corruption's at the Pentagon, and they won't touch it. They have failed 7 consecutive audits. There ought to be an outcry from the American public. Don't touch my Social Security. Don't touch my Medicaid. Don't touch my Medicare. Go to the Pentagon. But they won't do that. Elon Musk, he's one of the biggest Pentagon contractors in the U.S. government. No one's touching that. Think about that, everybody. Think about it. So, I mean, and let us don't buy in. I keep trying to tell y'all, don't buy into the hype when you see something on television, and they always make the good people the bad guys. And they make the people who really are a little sketchy the really sweet ones. Think about that. Think about that. Because I hope you all heard this story today, because I think that story was telling. No Daylight Kid, that did not sound like he was being warm and fuzzy. It did it, Dr. LaShawn Latrice?
Not at all.
It sounded menacing to me.
Yeah.
Because as it was written in the article, they said, no. He came at her. She was expecting him to encourage her, and he said, I don't know why, because everybody around her was from him, and they were trying to jam her. I'm like, what part of this were you not reading?
Right.
Bless her heart. Whew, I don't know, you guys. But Chaparral, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, and then you, Chaparral, close this out. Dr. LaShawn Latrice, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, as I stated earlier, I just think we're at a place where we have to now think about ourselves as a collective. We need to be more impressionable on uniting and trying to educate people and trying to get information out there so that people can know that it's not over. We don't have to throw the towel in. We don't have to just accept what it is that we see before us. It is an uphill battle, but it is a battle that we can win. It's just going to take a lot of work and a lot of rolling up the sleeves and a lot of faith. So I'm going to stay optimistic. I'm going to keep hope alive. I'm going to keep it moving.
Okay, that was a good one. Boom in my face. How about that part? It's okay. Chaparral Wells.
My last comment, everyone, is just call me when y'all ready to flip over the tables. You know, I'm ready. I'm ready to stand 10 toes down. We can storm the Capitol. I want to be a January 6th. So, you know, hey, we getting the pardons anyway. So let's January 6th them like they January 6th us. So let's turn over some tables, but let's fight for this democracy that we want and that we need. This is our money. This is our country. If we want to save it, we have to be the ones to save it. Nobody's going to save us. We see how the Democrats and the people that we have elected have been sitting in silence and allowing this dismantle of our democracy to occur. So the only people that's going to save us is us. So we ride at dawn, as they used to say. Let's go. Let's get it.
And Kash Patel, the new director of the FBI, please, she was speaking from a biblical context. That's what she was thinking of, Jesus overturning the tables in the temple because he said, this is my father's house and you are not doing his work. Okay, to paraphrase. This is work and this is his house, you're not doing his work. That's what she meant, Mr. Patel. But
yes, Mr. Patel, that's exactly what I meant, because I don't want y'all coming knocking, busting down my door like y'all got Mr. Mahmood.
But guess what? Guess what? If they do bust down your door, ain't nobody afraid now. Because we're on God's side. So we'll take
Amen.
that. No weapon formed against any of us shall prosper. Even when you weaponize the government against us, guess what? The government was weaponized against Dr. King, and he's bigger than ever before. And his name shall live in glory forever and evermore. And we can just keep on going with that. Ain't nobody afraid of the big bad wolf. No, no, no. And if you're afraid, guess what? If you ask God to help you, God will give you the courage to work it all out. So everybody, let's get with the program. Call 202-224-3121 so that you can keep Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. When they unplug Medicaid, Medicare will be unplugged as well. Think about that, everybody. When they shut these social security offices as they're doing, that means the elderly, the people who are physically challenged, are not going to be able to get to these offices. When they're requiring that you present yourself in person, that means that the elderly and the physically challenged, what if they don't have a car? What if they have to get on the bus? Can you imagine elderly people who are struggling and people who are physically challenged having to get on the bus? And you got to get there and wait hours. They've already cut the workforce. The people at the Social Security and the VA they're working as hard as they can. They don't have enough woman and manpower. They don't have it. So think about that, everybody. Think about those things. Excuse me. I love you. Boy, what a morning it's been. Dr. LaShawn Latrice, Chaparral Wells, Nina Turner, John Nichols, Ronnie Patrice, Ariel Gold. Ooh, did I miss anyone? You guys, it has been quite a day. And we've just had a lot to talk about. And so I'm sending you all so much love. And, we're going to talk with Chip Gibbons at 3 o'clock this afternoon, Central Standard Time, about the FBI. What will this FBI that Kash Patel, the new director, what is he going to make it into? Will they still weaponize the FBI, but against President Trump's enemies? I think we need not weaponize the FBI against anyone. That's not their job. They shouldn't do that, period. I don't care who it is. So let's think about that. Let's see what's going on. I love you, everybody. It has been great being with you today. Whew, got a whole lot done. And just think, we pulled this show together like within an hour. I love you, everybody. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. God bless.